Houston is set to welcome Afghan refugees to a new life on U.S. soil.
A number of organizations are gearing up to welcome families who are fleeing Afghanistan amid the Taliban takeover.
It's been a tough time the past couple of weeks in terms of watching the news. You've got Afghanistan, Haiti, and what just happened in Louisiana with Hurricane Ida. So it's really tough to turn on the news and not feel this deep sense of empathy for our brothers and sisters literally around the world. Today, we're going to focus on Afghanistan and what's going on there, what's been happening over the past few years. And we talked to two University of St. Thomas experts, Dr. Yeh and Professor Sindelar, about 3 stages of this event that's happening. Before you get started, hit the subscribe so that you get all of the latest, and also hit the bell icon so you're notified with the most up-to-date videos. Also, check us out on Instagram at Mac Studios UST for behind the scenes and all kinds of stuff that we're working on. Now to the rundown.
Scenes of bittersweet relief are starting to pop up in airports across the world as the mass evacuations from Afghanistan sail into another day. And with it, we're hearing more stories of how people got out through the chaos and the ones they left behind.
Let's get right into our interview with Dr. Yeh and Professor Sindelar about what's going on. The first stage, what happened and why?
So Genghis Khan, the Mughals, the Persians, the Soviets, and now the United States and NATO have failed to be able to put a governance system or have good governance over Afghanistan. It's broken up into tribal groups. It's a puzzle of tribal groups. The mountains reinforce that diversity. The tribes have for 3,000 years fought. You throw in the mix that the Soviet period led to the Mujahideen and the fight against the Soviets, and that was driven a lot by the Pakistani government, and especially the Inter Services Intelligence Directorate, which is fairly fundamentalist in its own thinking. It's a fairly, most of the officers there are heavy fundamentalists, so they liked the Taliban. Okay, so when President Bush went in, the first mistake we made was not blocking in the mountains, which we could have done, and we could spend a half hour talking about Donald Rumsfeld and George Tenet and the inter-bureaucratic fighting that went on, but we didn't do it. They escaped to Pakistan. Pakistan took them in and pretty much protected them. And from Pakistan, they've been launching things ever since. So you have a dysfunctional country, tribally based. 20 years would not have been enough time to build a government.
What's the U.S. national interest in the Middle East? Let's explain why we actually entered into a region in Afghanistan from the beginning, 9/11. That's the first reason, right? Anti-transnational terrorist attack that's reaching to the American homeland is one of the reasons why we actually went into Afghanistan right after 9/11. And we know our first target is Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, of course. In reality, Osama bin Laden wasn't really in Afghanistan, but we also have intelligence reporting that the Taliban is assisting Al-Qaeda. So, shooting 2 birds with 1 stone, that's what we're doing. And second reason that's why we're going is we still want to enhance our influences over the Middle Eastern area. I mean, for economic reasons, not just for strategic reasons to counter Soviet Union or even China, but again, United States, especially standing from a U.S. economic perspective, we would like to have a steady supply of oil and with a reasonable price. So we want to get rid of the impact or control over the OPEC. But things has changed dramatically, especially within the past 10, 20 years. What happened in Afghanistan is a tragedy. It's indeed a tragedy, but thinking from the hindsight, it's a decision that we have to make if we want to maintain or pursue our national interests.
Next, the second stage. How does this affect U.S. perception around the world and U.S.-Chinese relations?
We have seen the U.S. national interest transition into the Indo-Pacific area under the Trump administration, especially starting from 2018. One of the biggest reasons is we have a challenger to U.S. hegemony power, which is China. The rise of China is undoubtedly probably the most important issue that we're dealing with from the U.S. perspective, even from other countries' perspective. But one of the key issues that's why we actually switch our strategic attentions so sharp and so dramatically is because we have seen, especially starting from 2017, when Xi Jinping, the president of China, amended the constitution, canceling the term limit. It used to be this: the president can only serve 2 terms, 5 years a term. But now it could be, he could serve endlessly till he die. So with that regard, initially, Washington, policymakers and think tanks organizations in Washington, D.C. believe deeply that, we're allowing China to enter into World Trade Organization. We're bringing more globalization to China in hope that the economic development in China will bring regime change, or at least liberalize China. But it seems like the current leader of China is taking from a different direction or different trajectory of the nation. So with this problem of distinct ideology, regime type, or different attitude toward the open market, China is still not really a free economic market. So with that being said, the United States is really worried about what if China actually surpasses the U.S. power and becoming the rule makers of the world. Biden administration have standing on a very firm ground regarding they want to solve problems in a diplomatic way, right? So he despises the Trump unitary approach to China or to every country in the world. So as far as we can see, when Biden inaugurated, he started rebuilding his relationship with European Union, with NATO country, Japan, South Korea, or even Taiwan, even though we don't have a diplomatic ally. But at the same time, Biden also making remarks regarding we would like to engage into conversation with China, diplomat to diplomat, or even on the several issues that we actually pay tremendous attention, especially like global warming. But it seems like just by far after 7 months of inaugurations, we haven't really seen much advances across the bilateral relationship between the United States and China. And China doesn't really buy what we offer.
Afghanistan is going to be an interesting field of play, shall we say, between China and the United States, because China is a rising power. Basically, when you're a rising power, you want to gather as many allies and friends as you can. So Afghanistan is now that vacuum that I talked about. So there's an opening to get into Afghanistan and add that to their list of countries that look favorably upon China in the international realm. Importantly, the International Monetary Fund and governments in general on the Western side of things are saying Afghanistan, the Taliban is going to have to prove that it's going to have a reasonable government or we're not going to give you any money. There is, however, a country that doesn't care how you govern. They'll give you the money anyway, and that's China. And so they are already active in beginning to develop ways in which they can support the Afghan economy and therefore insinuate themselves and become the new best friend of the Taliban. This adds a very interesting twist because the thing that India would not want would be for China not only to be to the north, but now to be to the west also.
So this is something that I really work really hard with the student, try to let them know not just the current event, but at the same time, try to see through what's behind the current event and what's the aftermath, the effect that this event might bring to not just to U.S. foreign policy, but to the global relation, to the international relation at all.
And now the third stage, refugees.
There will probably be, I would say, several million refugees before we're done. The Taliban's announced that no Afghans are supposed to leave the country, but of course they're porous border, so they may not be leaving at the airport, but they'll leave into Pakistan, they'll leave into Iran especially. I think the Biden administration would say we owe something to the Afghanis who've been our friends for this long, and we're going to have to do something to help with the refugees. And he's in favor of that. I think we will bring in a number of refugees. There are a number of countries, Italy, Germany, Britain, some others are going to take some significant amount. I saw one figure that we might take up to 80,000 Afghans before before it's all over. The processing of that is they leave the country, then there is usually staging centers where all manner of non-governmental organizations like the Red Cross and the international human rights groups and each government identify those people to bring.
In his message for the 2013 World Day of Migrants and Refugees, Pope Benedict XVI said, "Where migrants and refugees are concerned, the Church and her various agencies ought to avoid offering charitable services alone. They are also called to promote real integration in a society where all are active members and responsible for one another's welfare, generously offering a creative contribution and rightfully sharing in the same rights and duties."
Houston is an extremely diverse city, not only diverse in the numbers of nationalities represented, but the amount of those nationalities present. And Houston, I think, has the second largest Afghani population already in the United States. So if you wish to place the refugees where they're going to have support from like-minded kinfolk, so to speak, Houston's going to be on the high on the list. And Houston also, with the Vietnamese, for instance, other refugee systems, Syrian refugees that have come more recently, we have a big history here in accepting refugees, and all the different church groups get involved. Each refugee family needs some sort of angel that's going to, some family that's going to help them get furniture, help them figure out how you buy food, help them figure out how to buy gas.
And there are a ton of ways that you can help. There are so many groups out there, especially right now, who are trying to make it easy for us to encounter refugees who are coming into Houston. First and foremost, Catholic Charities. Second, connect with a parish. A lot of local churches are doing some really cool stuff to help out with refugees in terms of items. And then also, you'll stumble upon some help for Hurricane Ida in Louisiana. It's our call to help widows and children and the most vulnerable among us, both in Houston and abroad.
In a way, I think we just have to keep pushing this knowledge and pushing this awareness to students. As a Catholic University at UST, I think we should actually reach out. We do have quite a lot of student clubs, and they could actually be the pioneers, the front face to engage with the refugee population from Afghanistan when this day comes.
I think what we need to do as a Catholic university is focus on being the Good Samaritan. That's the key thing. These people are by the roadside and they're wounded in many ways, and so we're going to have to step up and be the Good Samaritan, whether that's educationally, whether student groups here undertake to help a family get settled in. Catholic Charities will be looking for people, often through the parishes, to serve as mentors. In my parish, St. Thomas More, with the Syrians, they did that. People can volunteer to take on a family. Our students might think about doing that same thing, some of the clubs, to sponsor a family, help them out.
So with that in mind, stop this video, click that link down there for Catholic Charities, and start helping now. The Rundown is a podcast produced by Max Studios at the University of St. Thomas in Houston. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Max Studios UST.